I want to welcome everybody who's joining this webinar. And as you're entering, while we wait for people to come in, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Can say where your name and where you're from, and if you're in the botanical industry, what sector of that industry you're in. That'd be great. So again, welcome to, this is the next in the series on the Sustainable Herbs Program, Regenerative Practices Toolkit. And this webinar today is the second in a series where we're focusing on really farming practices with a real focus on caring for the soil and biodiversity around and regenerative practices as a whole. And I'm really grateful to have speakers from some of the leading farms who are really thinking about these issues. And my hope in having this series on regenerative practices in the botanical industry is really to bring more conversation around soil health and biodiversity to where and how botanicals are cultivated, and also to think about ownership models that really help support companies and farms to invest in the health of the soil. And so I meant to go to the next regenerative farming practices webinar, but there's the series of the ethnobotany webinars. And so, sorry, this is the wrong slide. Last time we had one with the Himalayan ethnobotany. On April 8th, rather than speaking with Kelly Bannister, I'll be speaking with Dennis McKenna. And I'm really excited for that webinar. He'll be talking about the science of psychedelics. And then on May 8th, I'll be speaking with Kelly Bannister. And then on April 1st, the third in the series on regenerative farming practices, we'll be speaking with 4 different family-owned farms. And there are 4 on that webinar because I couldn't pick which ones to include. And I'm excited to be speaking on that one with Jordan Pratt, who's a farmer director for Kauai Organic Farms, C. Stanley, who's from Green Heifer Farms, and that's in North Carolina, Mel and Jeff Carpenter from Zach Wood's Herb Farm in Vermont, and Jeff and Elise Higley from Oshala Farm. And the registration information for that can be found on the Sustainable Herbs Program website. And as with all of these webinars, they're made possible for free. We can make them available for free through the generous support of our underwriters. You can see those companies here on this slide, and you can find out more information about these companies by linking on the donor tab on the Sustainable Herbs Program website. And they're made available also through the support of the American Botanical Council members. You can find out more information about joining American Botanical Council on the HerbalGram at HerbalGram.org. Sorry about that. So with that, I'm happy to turn to the speakers for today. And I'm especially happy to have 2 quite different parts of the world. We'll have Danielle Cruz, who's speaking from Trout Lake Farm. Danielle is the farm manager for Trout Lake. We had the opportunity to visit her several years ago when I was doing research that began the Sustainable Herbs Program. And Danielle is farm manager, and she's been a leading force in implementing good agricultural practices at the farm. She's a strong promoter of organic, sustainable agriculture, and she does everything she can to promote the health of the soil and the environment around her. And in addition, I'm happy to welcome Jacoba Orlando, who's here speaking from Aboca in Italy. And I'm fascinated to learn about Aboca, which is I think, 100-year-old family company. Jacoba will tell us more. And he is an agricultural economist responsible for agriculture, public affairs management, economic assessments, and corporate sustainability. He's also the vice president of the Italian organic industry. And hopefully we'll be joined by Christine Mason from Standard Process. But for now, we'll go ahead and begin. And Danielle, I'd love you to take a few minutes and introduce Trout Lake and talk some about the farming practices you all do there.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. I appreciate it. First, just want to start by saying thank you to Anne for hosting this webinar today and having me participate, and Jackie for recommending me. Sustainability has always been a passion of mine on the farm, and so I think it'll be pretty easy to talk about. And so I hope we can open your eyes to some of the things that we do here sort of on the ground level. I was going to start, hopefully I can share my screen with just a little overview of Trout Lake. Just give me a minute here. I guess, let's see. So everybody can see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so a little bit about myself and the farm. I have been working here at Trout Lake Farm for 12 years. Trout Lake Farm has been in business since the early 1970s. So we have been producing organically since then, which is pretty neat. We were one of the first certified organic farms in general. So on our WSDA certification, I always find it pretty intriguing that we're number 9. So Lon Johnson, who started Trout Lake Farm, was an organic, pretty much a pioneer of the organic revolution back in the 70s. So we have 2 farm locations in Washington State. I am located at what we call our West Farm location in Trout Lake, Washington, and we have another East Farm location in Ephrata, Washington. In total, we have about 1,000 acres of organic herb production. At this location, we're doing about 280 acres, and at our Ephrata location, we have about 780 acres. The different crops we grow, mainly we're doing a lot of echinacea, dandelion, valerian, skullcap. At this location, at our East Farm, we do all of our field dried crops, including catnip, spearmint, and mint. So they also do a variety of other crops. So we do 15 to 20 different crops per year, depending on demand. We do everything from the ground all the way to finished distribution. So we start with the farming. We have our own milling facilities at our Ephrata location, milling and heat treatment, as well as we do all of our packaging there, then send it back to the West location where we do our finished good distribution. All of our products are distributed mainly in wholesale form, bulk herb form. So 30 to 50 pound bags that we're distributing internationally. Kind of just gave a little image. This is our finished goods warehouse here at the West Farm. And I already talked a little bit about our organic certification. A few of these slides, I just kind of put a couple pictures of the farm and our production, just so you can see our scale. And of course, included my favorite cover cropping, which will be a hot topic in this webinar. So this is one of my fields, 20-acre Austrian winter pea field that I grew. This is something, I'm planting in August after I finished harvesting my crop, and a really important part of our sustainability plan on the farm. So cover cropping is extremely important to me for many reasons, which I'll explain. But as you can see here on the right, you see all that rhizobia working hard to fix nitrogen in the soil, which is, to me, free fertilizer. So little picture of some of our cover cropping activities. This is our production activities. We're doing a lot of seeding and planting ourselves. We have our own GPS row cultivation system. So from left to right is bed preparation, seeding, and then on the right is our cultivation techniques. This is an important part of sustainability as well, just because labor and cost factors into being sustainable. This is how a lot of our herb harvest happens. And just to kind of give you an image, everything is mechanical. So on our scale, we're doing all mechanical harvesting. And this is an example of a skullcap harvest. And I also just showed an example of a root harvest because it's completely different. So we do herbs and roots depending on the crop. And so here's an image of our root digging, as well as on the right, that's actually roots being dried. So we're loading up our dryers there to dry our roots. So I thought the right kind of showed, we've made a lot of changes over the last 10 years I'll talk about during the webinar, but our dryer system was rebuilt, and we've gone to a lot higher quality standards and GMPs. So it showed a good visual of that. And just to wrap it up, we're kind of known for our echinacea. So this is one of my classic echinacea Mount Adams photos. And right this year, I think we're growing close to 100 acres of echinacea just at this farm location. So that is a little intro to Trout Lake Farm.
Great, thank you so much, Danielle. Jacopo, I'd love to hear you introduce HerbalGram.
Okay, thank you, Anna, for inviting me. I'm very glad to participate to this webinar. So I'm going also to share my screen. Let me know when you can see my presentation. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so HerbalGram is a quite strange company, I can say, since we control all our production chain. Now I'm going to present you our main characteristics. So HerbalGram was founded 40 years ago with the aim of, I can say, restoring the central role played by natural substances in the human health and the well-being. In a strongly research-oriented context using the criteria of evidence-based medicine. So this is our founder. He started 40 years ago in Tuscany, where we are actually located. And as I said before, the main characteristic of our company is the control of the entire supply chain. So we start with agriculture. Then there is our steps of transformation in our plant, where we produce food supplement and medical devices made of botanicals. And then we cover the distribution with our products that are sold in Italy and in 15 countries abroad in pharmacies mainly. And it is, as we will see later, maybe also in our discussion, it is very important the role of research in our work, since all the main aspects start from research. A research that is very wide, so we cover different aspects, different fields of research, with historical research concerning the historic use of medicinal plants, botanical research in order to find the proper herbs for according to our needs, and then also strong research in clinical area, in medical area, so with metabolomic, molecular biology, preclinical, clinical, and pharmaceutical development. Some data. The group employs over than 1,500 people, and our turnover is about 230 millions last year. And as I said before, since research and development is a very important area, also investments are quite relevant. We invest in research about 7% of our turnover, and we have around 100 researchers involved. We directly manage over than 1,700 hectares that we cultivate according to organic production in Tuscany. And we produce around 70 different medicinal plant species. Not only medicinal plants, as we maybe will see later, we produce around 60 medicinal different species of medicinal plants and other crops according to our need, according to rotation of our surfaces. So In 2018, we became a benefit corporation. I know that in many different United States, there is this kind of law. Italy was the first country outside the United States to adopt a specific legal framework for a benefit corporation. So we became a benefit corporation in 2018. For those who doesn't know what does it mean, a benefit corporation is a company which is very committed to the common good, and by law has to focus on some specific common benefit goals that the company has to introduce inside to its statute. So we decided to become a benefit corporation because for us it means not only that we can pursue the common good, but that we must according to our statute. So it was an occasion to prove that it is possible to implement a model that can generate profit through the creation of value throughout a positive impact on the environment, society, and individuals. We also decided to become B Corp certified in order to have a proof of this kind of approach. And here you can see the 6 areas covered by our statute. So we decided to specify inside to our statute that our company is committed to the promotion of people's health and well-being based on the comprehension and valorization of relationship between man and nature. That we have to create a research basis in order to have a greater understanding of natural complexes and how can they be useful for our health. And then the third area is the creation of a new supply chain model based on the active involvement of all our partners. And maybe for this webinar, the most important is the fourth specific common good benefit, since it is the diffusion of respectful and practices for the environment, especially the organic agriculture and the respect for natural resources, biodiversity, and soil vitality. The other two are the orientation to cultural and social development of the community in which we operate, and the creation of a positive work environment. So this changement was not a great challenge for us, since the company was already committed to this kind of goals, to this kind of activity. But we think that it was very important to put this aspect inside to our statute, because now we have to do that by law. Okay. So I started saying that maybe we are a strange company because usually the different steps that we made inside to our company are made by different firms. So we are a complex company, and we think that this approach is useful because in order to have a deep understanding of natural complexes, we need also a complex company.
I like that. I want to thank you both for providing, and I know there's a lot you could say, and thank you for keeping that concise. I'd love, Danielle, if you could dive in a little bit more into the practices that you're using on the farm to really care what your vision is for beyond just the yield of echinacea and how you implement that.
Sure, Anne. Yeah. So for me, maintaining soil health is the most important part of the farm. I've noticed over the years is just if your soil is not in good condition, then everything else fails pretty much. That your yields are going to be reduced. You'll be using more resources than you need. So a big part of sustainability for me is just managing my soils. Usually when I have good soil management, it naturally produces good yields with little inputs. And some of the things I do personally on the farm is it always starts with soil testing, knowing what's in your soil, knowing your soil. And really it's taken me, 10 years to really understand fully my soils. And so every year I do testing on every crop and every field to understand my nutrient levels before I do anything, any additions or any fertilizers. I go through that during the winter time and set up my plan for fertilization in the spring. And each different nutrient is handled differently. So for example, if I'm low on calcium or boron, it's, we're going to apply those amendments specifically to the needs of the fields. And this is all important because if you over apply or under apply, it's going to affect yield ultimately. So soil health is most important. Some of the things I do in order to maintain soil health, especially in the winter, and what I would say are two most important parts of sustainability for me are crop rotation and cover cropping. We are lucky enough to be growing multiple different herbs, so I am able to rotate my crops each year. Some of our crops are in the ground for 2 to 3 years, but as they come out, I ensure that I put something different in. And I do this over 5 to 7 year period of time. So it's not just 1, 2 years, it's really a long-term plan. And a lot of these crops overlap. So for instance, skullcap and lemon balm, both family Lamiaceae, I don't want to put skullcap where I just had lemon balm. So you still need to think about beyond just the plant, actually, as far as back as the family. This helps prevent disease and pests and weeds. So I would say crop rotation is extremely important for me in maintaining sustainability and reducing my pests. Secondly, cover cropping, kind of showed you a picture there. I've been experimenting with cover cropping now for about 10 years and the impacts are just exponential. It's pretty amazing. I didn't realize how important cover cropping is. And a lot of this is to really reserve your soil over the winter time. So all the nutrients in the soil when it's bare, can have the potential of leaching out. So with cover cropping, you have a plant establishing over a period of time, usually the winter, holding in those nutrients. And that in the springtime, that grows up and actually covers the soil for weed control. And then I till that in and it's actually biomass for adding nutrient to the soil. So those two practices, cover crop and crop rotation, are some things I really pay a lot of attention to on the farm. And the cover cropping, as I showed you with the Austrian winter pea, it's naturally fixing nitrogen. So a free fertilizer is always very helpful. So it's less I have to apply in the springtime. So those are a few things I do. I don't know. I could go on with a lot of other things, but soil health, I think, is what's most important in maintaining healthy crops.
I wanted to add one quick question that shows my naivete as a farmer. But so the conversations around, echinacea traditionally grows in a mixed, in a meadow, which is quite diverse. And now you're growing it, what looks like a monocrop from my eye, it might be a smaller size field than the wheat and corn. But I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that, the diversity of the plants. And I know some critics would say it should be much more diverse for feeding the soil and the mycelium and all of that.
Yeah, and I'd say, for that, what we do is, in one field, I'll have multiple different crops. So we do have diversity within a single field, as well as diversity within the plant. We've been managing our echinacea since the beginning of time, and we have our own variety that, we allow to cross-pollinate. We collect our own seed. And are producing from that diversity of seeds. So really there's a lot of diversity within the echinacea, even within itself. So you get different leaf size, different heights, plant type, flowering time, and all those things kind of contribute to sustainability, allowing for different pollination times. So not only is there, I would say, diversity within the field, but also within the crop itself. Every echinacea is really different, and you can see it when you're actually out there walking through it. So
yeah, I said it showed my naivete. Yeah. Jacopo, I'd love to hear some of the practices that you all are using at Abaca, and you can respond to Danielle and continue that conversation.
Okay, sure. As I said before, okay, all our production is made under organic certification, but I would say that this is the first step. So we started to produce without chemical substances. Before then, in Europe, there was a regulation for the organic production. And our farming production cycle starts from the production of the seed, and hence with the plant drying provides all the materials that we need. And raw materials are selected on the basis of phytocomplexes in order to guarantee homogeneity and standardization of cultivations. And analysis on raw materials and on water and soils help us to understand if everything is going in the proper way, especially concerning our neighbors, because in Italy, surface of field are quite small. So we are a large company, but with fields that are located in different areas. So sometimes the activities of neighbors can be a problem. So we have to do a constant activity in analyzing samples of water and raw materials and soils. And our crops are constantly improved in order to increase the quality of our drugs and improve the productivities, in particular way analyzing their habits, the resistance to temperatures, the resistance to all kind of adversity that we can face. And we work with some university, in particular way Pisa University here in Tuscany, in order to improve the fight against weeds. And we have also collaborated with another university here in Umbria, because we started to introduce also the breeding inside to our lands, because we think that if we have to consider the farming activity like a cycle, also the breeding activities is relevant, is important. So we introduced some cattle and swine breeding, where the animals are free to graze, and so they bring an important effort to soil fertility. And from our point of view, the main important issue is biodiversity and soil biodiversity. So agricultural techniques employed show that in order to maintain the structure and the biological balance of the soil, we have to use only superficial tillage. In this way, we do not bring up the surface weed seeds located in the lower part of the soil. And also the deeper tillage doesn't mix the soil, but breaks the topsoils, allowing rainwater to go deep in the earth, but without change the profile of the soil. Our system is made of complexity, and so I said before the importance of biodiversity. Because biodiversity, agrobiodiversity, and soil biodiversity is essential if we want to maintain the ability of our agroecosystem to be resilient. So all our activities are made in order to maintain a high level of biodiversity, and we are happy to know now that in our soil, the biodiversity of soil increase year after year. We started with a certification, a specific certification of agrobiodiversity. It is called the Biodiversity Alliance some years ago. And there is a score for Biodiversity Alliance certification, We started with a score around 90 on the scale of 100 points available. And year after year, we improved our score. And now we have the maximum score of 100 on 100. And we are the first company in Europe to gain this score. For us, biodiversity is essential, and we achieve the preservation and valorization of agrobiodiversity through 4 elements. The first one is biodiversity varieties. At the beginning, I said that we cultivate around 70 different species every year. So the diversity of the varieties and cultivated species is very important. The second one is the sagittal biodiversity. So the biodiversity of those wild species that in conventional farms are seen like enemies to fight. On the contrary, in our ideas, we have to control wild species, wild weeds, but they are essential in order to maintain the complexity of the system. And then we have a medicinal garden where we test the availability of species in our ecosystem. So the fourth element is the certification, all the activities that are essential to be certified. And so I would say that the main aspect is the biodiversity.
Great, thank you. Christine, welcome.
I'm sorry, I'm an hour off. I'm totally confused. I apologize. I've been sitting here 2 hours already.
Well, you can jump in, maybe say a few things about the model of standard process, and then really talk about how you've been caring for the soil.
Sure. Standard process is a supplement company. We have about 25 different crops we grow every year. Then we grow another 10 to 20 different cover crops. So our diversity is really extensive, growing 40 crops a year. We were established in 1929. The founder, Dr. Roy Lee, was a farmer in Wisconsin, and he thought it was super important to own his own land and to raise his own organic produce. So I tell people it wasn't real hard to be organic in 1929, right? There was no 2,4-D or petroleum-based nitrogen yet. But I'm pretty proud of the fact that for 92 straight years, that's the way that we've raised these supplement raw ingredients. I'm responsible this year for about 7.25 million pounds of produce to get in. Everything's vertically integrated here. So we're responsible from the soil test all the way to the bottle and sales. Everything's right here on site. So we only harvest what we can process that day. And we have 732 acres that we're managing right now. We have about 450 employees, and there's 6 of us at the farm. So we are all very intimately acquainted with our soil and our vegetables. We're very busy. I had a presentation already. I'm so sorry. And of course, so it was quiet here. I turned all my phones off so nobody could call me and say, Christine, you dummy, get on. But I have slides to show. I've managed the farm for 21 years now, and we take soil samples with GPS. And the thing I'm the proudest of, if you compare 20 years apart, our soil samples, I've grown the organic matter on every field we're managing here 11 to 130%. And so to me, that's the true nature of sustainable is this soil and the earth better when you left it than when you got here? And all of us that grow herbs and vegetables know it's really an unforgiving thing to grow, because if we harvest an echinacea root or we take off a baby kale, there's nothing left but the soil. And I think one of the ways we've been able to really improve our soil is we've been very dedicated for over 2 decades to cover cropping. And so we grow this really beautiful diversity of crops.
You can show your slides if you
Can
want.
I?
Yeah.
Okay. How am I smart enough to do that? Do I say share?
Share
Or
screen. Yep.
share screen? Okay. Aha, there I am. Can you see it?
No.
No. It's pulled up. I don't know.
Okay, maybe
Oh, here we
just,
go. How's that? How's this? Better?
yes,
Yay.
great.
So this is our farm headquarters. These are some of the crops we grow. This is our 732 acres. That's my, this is chickling vetch. So this is one of our strategies. We have our own compost site. We have a couple million pounds of compost that we manage right on the farm every year. Here's a picture of our, so this particular situation was Sudan grass, sunflowers, and underseeding of clover. Most of our nitrogen and most of our fertility, the majority comes from these covers. So this is chickling vetch, and some of the nodulation, you know, we could get 100 to 200 units in an acre easily off these leguminous cover crops. And what a blessing. Look at our soil. I mean, this is our reward. It's so awesome. Here's the soil tests I was talking about. These are just the front 4 fields of standard process. We also are starting to measure, you know, we measure our CECs, our organic matters, our carbon sequestration. We're starting to experiment with different outlets to start measuring on a year-to-year basis our soil life activity too, which I think is critically important. So sustainability doesn't have a legal, you know, or a defined definition. So if you talk to 100 farmers, there's probably 100 definitions of sustainable. But to me personally, I'm very proud that the parameters we know how to measure, I think this soil is improving here. We do some other fun things. We have dedicated pollinator beds. We have beautiful areas of just like soil curtains. We don't harvest, or you can see we don't go fence row to fence row. We leave wooded and brush fence lines. We put up bluebird houses and wren houses and bat houses. And the neat thing about standard process too is we only harvest what we could process that day. So we process from May 15th till Thanksgiving. And because it's so successive, we always have something blooming, not just our cover crops, but our crops themselves. So we have this just abundance of bees. We never mow the perimeter of a field ever. So the majority of bumblebees live in the ground, and so we try not to disturb them. Obviously, we all need pollination for success, and that's critical in the United States right now. So we try to spend a lot of time on our pollinators too. And then our reward, I tell everybody, I don't think we are what we eat, and how can what we eat be healthier than the soil it grew from. And so every single decision we make, we try to go back to the soil here.
Great. Thanks. Is that, do you want to stop
Is that,
sharing?
yep.
Or do you have more?
Nope.
Okay.
So I unstopped my share. There we go.
Great, thank you. Each of you work for a company that's vertically integrated to some extent. I know Trout Lake also sells directly, but I wonder if you could each speak a little bit to that structure, what it means to have the farm be integrated into the company, and the advantages and the challenges of that. I'm not sure who wants to go first. Danielle, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, we are owned by Amway, which is a larger corporation. And I think, you know, a huge advantage, and I've always, you know, I kind of look at a lot of other farms, and you know, it's obviously all comes down to cost and capital and investment in your farm. So we do have the opportunity to be able to invest in capital. But I will say, even though we have that opportunity, it's always a challenge on educating, even internally, on understanding why we need that capital and the justification behind it. I think there is not a lot of understanding of the farm in general, unless you're a farmer. And so even though we may want that $150,000 tractor, being able to actually justify it and explain is a lot harder than it may seem. So we spend a lot of time in the winter, really understanding our capital plan and trying to justify, our purchases for the upcoming season. But I think, advantage is that sometimes we do get that capital funding, and I think it can really go a long way in helping us to create a better farm. So we've been able to invest in programs like H2A and GPS technology, which I think, on some of the smaller farms or if there isn't a lot of capital, those things may be really hard to invest in. So our minimum wage is over $16 an hour with our H2A program. But this gives us a sustainable workforce. I have, of my 35 workers this year, all 100% are returning workers. And they're also coming from one of our farms, one of our Amway farms in Mexico. So there's really a close correlation. They understand the safety and the quality standards that we have at each farm. And I think that's extremely important. Back in 2012, we came into an issue where we had a bunch of workers and then it was a really good apple year and everybody left to go picking. And it was like, we had nobody to harvest. So, piece rate was definitely, we're offering a lot more dollar there at the time. And so that's when we started investing in the program. And then on the GPS front, we've really been able to reduce our weeding costs. And I think, as both of you guys know, the weeding is definitely the highest cost on the farm, and really, narrowing in on our crop row and using mechanical equipment to reduce our weeding costs has also really helped. So some of that financial backing is very important at our farm.
I agree with Danielle. When I got here, we had 125 seasonal laborers, and now there's 6 of us. And that's because of GPS and some of the really amazing equipment we have. We have photo guided cultivators that can pixelate whether it's a crop or a weed. And I think GPS is really going to help more of the world be organic and bring us some possibilities. I guess I'm really lucky because the founder was a farmer. And so all along, the farm has just been the core of standard process. And I'm also blessed, like Danielle said, most of my people have been here almost the 2 decades I have. So we have a lot of years of experience under our belt. Vertically integrated companies, to be able to promise quality control from your soil sample forward, I am thrilled that it seems like the world wants to be more in touch with their food and their food source. And this gives us the opportunity to promise, look, it started here and it ended here. And it's a big responsibility and a huge capital investment. I think it certainly carries more risk. What if you have a crop failure or a flood or something, but I think it also brings us an extremely loyal customer base because they can come to the farm and see it themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree with these words. So our situation is quite similar to the one described by Christine. I would like to add, if I can, I was thinking when I saw the beautiful picture shared by Christine, that maybe for all of our company, it is a big challenge to explain to people why, for example, biodiversity is so important for us. So here in Europe, the European Commission made a proposal for a communication for a new regulation on biodiversity strategy. And my opinion is that for other farmers, it's quite too hard to understand why they have to be committed to biodiversity. Because if you have to spray your herbicides, you don't need biodiversity. Biodiversity is something that is a trick for you. On the contrary, we can do our best in cultivating in organic only if we have a high level of biodiversity. So our activity, it is possible only if we take care of our lands. And this is very, very important because our approach is totally different if we see to those farmers that have a different kind of approach. Staying to your question, Anne, for us, the big challenge is to invest more and more on research, because I explained before that it is a very central element of our vertically integrated chain. And we developed an approach that we called evidence-based natural, because we are the result of our approach is having solution which address both the area of homeostasis when we talk about food supplement, and also the area of therapy that historically is covered only by medicine. But we think that also in our sector, we have the potential of natural complexes, substances, and according to the system medicine criteria, we can bring the use of natural substances in the most high level of medicine.
And does the fact that you're vertically integrated, does that, when we had spoken before, you talked about,
of course,
and the
of
quality
course,
control with.
Of course, the overall control is fundamental if we want to be able to maintain what we promise with this kind of approach. So we have to apply our research directly to all the area covered by our research. So if we have to rise to a result, we have to cover the research in botanics, and we have to cover the activity in botanics. We have to apply in research in agriculture, and we have to do our crops. We have to apply in clinical research, and we have to make our products based on our raw materials. So the entire control is essential in this dimension.
To piggyback on what he said, I totally agree too. When you're vertically integrated and you have your own R&D department and all these very talented PhDs and clinical research, like you said, there's very, very little margin in farming anymore. And so most farming discussions are on yield. And I never have ever sat in a yield discussion at Standard Process. It's more like how can we increase the ebenanthramides, or what did you do for your glucosinolates? Or so when you're vertically integrated, it also gives you the ability to put your entire focus on phytonutrition, and like you could breed your own seeds, you could have your own varieties. I think it's critically important for the impact of these products that we're vertically integrated.
Danielle, do you have anything to add to that? Or you?
Sorry there. No, I absolutely agree. I think, we're vertically integrated in a different way, but yeah, it's pretty much from the seed through all the way to, our wholesale distribution. And I agree. We control the quality and, all the way from the farm. And that's really important. And for all the reasons I mentioned.
And as I have been doing the work at Sustainable Herbs Program, I've been surprised at how rare that is, to have such an integrated model. And I wonder what thoughts you each have around advice to other companies to try and just tighten that up a little bit or become more vertically integrated, if you have thoughts or advice of where to begin.
Farming is a very capital heavy thing to do. I think it's why we don't have more young farmers in the world. So probably just the capital of it all is the toughest. And there's never going to be more land available in every country. It's a fight to keep farmland and not be developed. So probably one of the biggest challenges of being vertically integrated is even to find the right piece of land, I would think.
Mhm.
I agree. And I think, as we talked about, we're farming and milling. I think part of that, as Christine said, is just, being able to spread our costs and our overhead over, all of the production of the herb rather than putting it all on the farm, because we are the biggest cost. And, it always comes down to cost, and even just in this webinar with sustainability, I think, we try and do the best we can. And for the consumer or the customer, understanding just the cost of sustainability, the investments in GPS and helping to sustain our workforce, and investments in cover cropping. And a lot of farms struggle to be able to afford doing these things because they are added costs with, investment in seed and planting costs. And so what I've realized is those investments pay off, but sometimes it's really hard to get started from a dollar standpoint on investing in sustainability.
Yes, of course, the issue of cost is quite relevant, since investment are very massive, so it's quite important. But at the same time, to be vertically integrated means to have the possibility to have an higher added value creation. Since we start with agricultural production, that sometimes means also here in Italy low added value. On the contrary, when you control all the chain, you have the possibility to make the value creation. And of course, to be vertically integrated means also to be accountable for every product that we sell, and for the overall impact that our actions have in terms of sustainability. So also from this aspect, from this point of view, the overall control of all the steps take it may be easier to have a direct control of your impact, and to modify some of your action in order to be more sustainable.
Yeah, I really love how you talk both about the value creation and that accountability, and the responsibility that comes with that.
Yes, if I think to the concept that I described before, our approach is that the value creation is the first step in order to be able to sell. So it's not selling out the moment of value creation because you get money, but you will be able to sell only if you have created value before. And value creation means not only from economic point of view, but also from social and environmental point of view. So you have to create value, and then you will be able to sell out your products.
There's a question that relates a little bit to this value of the social creation and the tension between mechanization and employing more people. Christine, you were saying, I forget the number of farmers you employed, and now there's 6. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit to that. I mean, there's also the challenge that people don't want to farm because it's hard work, but the economic livelihood part.
Organic farming is not the easy way, that's for sure. But, I think when I started, I think there was 120 people in the plant. Now there's like 400. And so I'm sure we employ way more people than we used to. But when I got here, for instance, we planted garlic by hand. And no matter how hard you try to plant garlic by hand on your hands and knees, it's not straight. And then because it's not straight, you can't take a tractor down the row. And then because you can't take a tractor down the row, it's just like kind of a vicious cycle of I'm a little bit behind. And so with this GPS and the ability to even say the GPS is so good now, you could take a 4-row transplanter and come in with a 6-row cultivator. We could have never done that when I started. And I think my employees have lasted as long as they have because we're no longer hand hoeing and hand pulling and hand doing all the work we did and planting on our hands and knees. And I think we have a better product. I think 2%, I could be wrong, of the acres in the United States are organic right now. I think GPS is going to make it possible for more people to try it. I hope. I think it's the only way to feed the future, but it's been good for us for sure, technology.
Mm-hmm. Do either of you want to, Danielle, did you want to chime into that or?
Yeah, I just will second that. You know, we've been able, I think really what we focus on is, you know, hours of labor per crop, and we've been able to see that go down with the GPS. And I still think, you know, when I first started here, we were working, you know, 70, 80-hour weeks because we didn't have enough people. So we all had to put in that extra time, and, you know, 6-7 months a year is just really taxing. So I've actually been able to incorporate sort of a labor strategy that where we're only working, you know, 50 and maybe at harvest or maximum, we'll get up to 65 hours, but working more people and less hours. And then ultimately we've been able to keep the same people and just reduce the hours with the, you know, innovation of GPS. So I think, you know, even reducing the hours where our farmers are actually working like a normal work schedule rather than potentially 70 to 80-hour weeks. So I think definitely another advantage of taking care of the workers.
Yeah. We're coming to the end of the hour. There's so many more things we could talk about. And closing, I would love to, you know, the work you all are doing is so complex and challenging on so many different levels. And I wonder what gives you the most meaning, or what you love most about the work that you're doing, what gives it the value for yourself, for each of you to.
I'll start with are you gonna go, Christine?
Nope, doesn't matter when I go.
Okay. I always say the people. You know, I love the soil and the plants. You know, they're my passion. But really, the people that I work with and the employees, you know, bring me back every day, and they really encourage me to keep going and being able to make their lives better. I think, you know, with organic farming, being able to promote, you know, working in a pesticide-free environment and seeing people thrive and training and teaching, you know, that really brings me happiness, because a lot of people aren't aware of the importance of organic farming. And so every day, just try and teach somebody something new. And I think they always, you know, can bring me up when times are tough. So for me, it's the people on the farm that keep me going and really creating a sustainable future, you know, by farming sustainably and organically.
Yeah.
It makes me very sad when people say it seems like conventional agriculture's number one argument is it's selfish to be organic, you can't feed the world. And this has been so rewarding for me. I say, please come over then, because I think this might be the only way to feed the world. And the health and vitality of the soil, a system with no insecticides. You know, in 21 years, I've lost one crop ever to an insect, zero disease pressure. I think it's hopefully open some people's eyes and see that we can farm in a more natural and sustainable way.
Thank you.
So I think that the idea to work for a company which believe that have a positive impact is important. Is important for the company. Is important for people who works for. Is important because I think that it is the best place where I can work. So if I think when I was in university, I think that it was a dream to the idea to have the possibility to work for something that it's correct, it's proper for the idea of the world that I would like to leave to my child. So I think that this is the best thing. The idea to work on something that is useful for the environment and for the people. And organic production, I think that is the only way, even if we have now maybe start to think to a new idea of organic, because here in Europe, here in Italy, there is a lot of greenwashing, a lot of companies which emphasize the idea of sustainable agriculture, and I'm not able to understand what exactly is sustainable agriculture sometimes. So we have to work to improve. We have to improve organic production. We have to improve our ability to communicate all the things that are beside that are under our soils, all the importance of our work.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining. And there's obviously so much more you can learn about each of these companies, and I encourage you to go to the websites. I know Abaca especially has several videos that give you some behind the scenes view. And they also have an amazing museum, which I think is why I thought you were 100 years old. Anyway, thank you. Thank everybody for joining. Thank you again, the members of ABC and the donors of Sustainable Herbs program that have made this webinar series possible. And again, I encourage you to join us on April 1st, when we'll be having the next Regenerative Practices webinar, and this will be with small and family-owned farms. So you can see another perspective on some of the challenges that were discussed today. So thank you all very much for joining.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you to everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody.